What is going on out there, Odds Squad? It's your boy Bleed, and it's Al Mac. We're coming at you with the UFC Vegas 20 recap. But not just that. We got UFC 259 coming up this week. I mean, we've just ended UFC 20. It's officially UFC 259 fight week, baby. And we have a spectacular card to talk about. But before we get into that, we're going to recap the main card of tonight's UFC Vegas 20 event. Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Ciryl Gane. Pretty good card, Al. What'd you think of this one, man?
I thought it was pretty terrible, to be honest. Just like, like I said to you before the stream started, if Montana De La Rosa and Maria Bueno Silva is the second best fight of the night, I think that there's a little bit of a problem with the product. But, like you also said to me, we got such a good card coming up next Saturday. So we're kind of a little bit spoiled here. So I shouldn't have expected, I can't expect the world every single time. But, that main event, we'll talk about it. That main event was a pretty huge letdown. One thing I did want to mention before we get started was the over. The over was the story of the night tonight. It cashed 9-0 for plus 5.5 units.
Crazy.
And if you bet the over in every single, or if you bet a 9-fight parlay on the over, a $10 parlay would have cashed for like $470 plus 4,700 or something like that. So pretty crazy. It's funny, even the 8 fights went decision, and the one fight, which was on the Ronnie Lawrence fight, 2 minutes and 38 seconds into the third round. So even that fight went over.
Yep.
So good night for people betting that prop. And I think now it's up. So 53-25 on 2021, plus 9.34 units. So 67.9% of fights have gone over the betting total so far in 2021, which is that's pretty crazy. I tracked this last year and it wasn't even close.
Yeah, it's very crazy, Al, because the thing is, right at the Apex, we're talking about the smaller octagon, which always brings the notions of fights finishing, right? Like there's less room to work with. Guys can't really escape. Man, I don't know if this is just an anomaly right now and things are going to level out. We're going to start seeing a lot more finishes to kind of balance these stats out. But I don't know, man. We're definitely something we'll keep track of. And yeah, man, Al, keep those numbers pumping, dude, because this is some very interesting stuff. And speaking of numbers pumping, we see a lot of people in the chat already. Thank you guys for coming and checking out the show. We see your comments and everything. We might not reply to everything, but if you guys have a good point, we will talk about it. Go ahead and hit that thumbs up for us, though, for sure. And get the word out, man. You go ahead and share this show, spread it on Twitter, do all that cool stuff. We're going to get it going. So, Al, first fight on the main card, we had Alex Caceres, unanimous decision win over Kevin Croom. Man, Al, I got to tell you, I took that underdog shot on Kevin Croom, dude. It was a very popular pick this week. If maybe the underdog darling of the week outside of Montana De La Rosa, which we'll talk about here very shortly, even though she closed the favorite. Kevin Croom, man, I felt like this fight was going to play out much closer than it did. I mean, to put it simply, Alex Caceres is just better than Kevin Croom. He does have the better resume. Both guys, double-digit losses, right? But, man, Kevin Croom, continuously comes forward, continuously works for the takedowns, doesn't really have a lot of success getting in takedowns. And while the fight plays out on the feet, Alex Caceres is absolutely tagging him up, staggering him, hitting him with really good shots. But even when Kevin Croom finally gets the fight to the mat, does essentially nothing with it. I mean, Caceres is even the busier man off his back, locking up triangles. This was just all Alex Caceres essentially from the jump. Questionable execution, questionable game plan from Kevin Croom. But all in all, Alex Caceres gets the unanimous decision win. Where do both guys go? I don't know, man. Kevin Croom, I don't think he's got a very high ceiling. I think we've probably saw him overachieve in that initial fight in the UFC where he caught Roosevelt Roberts really early and finished him. Alex Caceres, I feel like he's still the exact same guy we thought he was. very middle tier type guy, very clear cut. The talent level he's going to beat, the talent level he's going to lose to. What did you take away from this one, Al? Did you have any action on this fight?
Yeah, I had a small play on Croom and on the under here. Yeah, it was. I said it a couple times on this show where it was like, as soon as the fight started, I knew Croom was in trouble, and there was no real point where Caceres had any chance of losing here. Yeah, he just looked so tired. It was all in all, it wasn't like a very compelling fight. It was just one-way traffic. And yeah, and I think I'll say about Caceres is it felt like he kind of played it a little bit conservative. It felt like he had a chance to close out the fight, but all in all, it wasn't even that great of a performance by Caceres. He didn't really impress me. It was just I wanted to see a finish. Maybe that's why I'm a little bit biased here, because I had the under. So it was just plus he minus 190. He was on the money line, and then plus 100 by decision. So even then, there was no reason to have bet Caceres here. I thought there was very little value, and just all in all, I just didn't like this fight.
Yeah, well, I don't blame you, man. It wasn't like an action-packed fight. Kind of a boring game plan from Croom, but really nobody executed much. So let's keep it rolling. Here's a fight that was much more entertaining. Pedro Munoz, unanimous decision victory over Jimmy Rivera. I'll tell you what, man, this fight really came down to just one factor, the calf kick. This technique is changing the face of this sport. I mean, it's truly incredible. Pedro Munoz, he invests early and often in the calf kick, and I just honestly cannot advise enough. Like this technique is so nuts. I mean, let me just explain something here. Why did it take 25 years for this sport to exist for people to realize the effectiveness of the calf kick? Well, we used to have the traditional leg kick, which was targeted above the knee. You were going more for the thigh, more for the side of the knee, right? But here's the big issue with that. A properly checked traditional leg kick is very, very bad, very painful, very detrimental for the kicker, right? So as soon as somebody starts checking some leg kicks, you land a few good ones, they begin to check it. It's going to really stop someone from throwing the kick that's going to get checked, right? We even see the situation like Anderson Silva, Chris Weidman, where you check that thing properly using that upper shin bone compared to that lower shin bone, that bone's going to break, right? But here's the difference with the calf kick. The calf kick, if it doesn't land, I mean, you're either still landing to the calf and it's just not planted down, you're landing to the side of the foot, or you're just swinging on pure air with not a lot of, repercussions if you miss, unless the guy's firing, punches over the top. But man, this technique is so outrageous. Pedro Munoz straight up wins this fight off the calf kick. The fight was generally close as far as, things went from the boxing range. And I got to give Jimmy Rivera credit. He really showed some heart, and he really landed some really powerful shots, even compromised on one leg. But, I tweeted it out earlier tonight. I've never seen a one-legged man win an ass-kicking contest. Jimmy Rivera fought this fight one-legged, and it just came down to, the fact that he just couldn't get anything off good, was absolutely hurt, diminished. Honestly, I'm surprised at one point he even made it to the scorecards. It looked like it was bothering him so bad. Props to Pedro Munoz, though. Incredible adjustments. I had Jimmy Rivera in this one, man. I thought it was a solid bet, but it just goes to show that the calf kick is this new X factor where every fight we have to just wonder, what if previous game plans don't matter? What if a guy just goes out there and decides he's just going to calf kick this guy? I mean, it's never a bad game plan, and when it's effective, it wins fights. What'd you think of this one, Al?
Yeah, I thought this was the best fight of the night. I thought this was really, it was really interesting. One thing that I will say is that Michael Bisping saying that we should ban calf kicks was one of the most ridiculous things I have ever heard. I've ever heard in my entire life. And hey, I like Bisping. I think he's awesome. And then Felder half agreed with him. And even Anik said that this is something that's been talked about. That's like saying the NBA should ban 3-pointers. That's like saying boxing should get rid of the liver punch or the body punch. Like, it's just it's ludicrous. It's absolutely ludicrous. The way that you counter this is it's much easier said than done, but the way that you counter is you have to go forward. If you're a wrestler, you have to time the calf kick and get some type of a takedown. Like, I would love to see somebody try to do the calf kick thing to somebody like Covington or Usman, because I think that, a really good wrestler is able to counter this. And, look, Habib countered it. Habib went through it. He got through it, and that calf was not, doing good at all. And something that Dustin Poirier brought up when he beat McGregor was, the calf kick has changed from you used to target the thigh to try to get that kind of that thigh contusion or that, that really deep swell, or even to bruise the femur or whatever. And then people, a lot more guys that were into modern MMA, like the first era of the UFC, like Matt Brown and stuff like that, they started realizing, you hit that calf twice, even just twice, you're
once.
Yeah. The swelling has nowhere to go, right? Because there's such little fat there. So, it starts to stretch your skin, and it's extremely painful. And you could be fine, but you could lose a fight just because of the calf kicks, right? Because it's just so debilitating. And one of these times we're going to see somebody, put up a crazy performance where they're going to get robbed, but they just can't continue because the calf kicks, right? Because the more and more that people, the more and more that these fighters get this finely tuned, I feel like we're going to start to see stoppages due to calf kicks, and I'm all for it. Like, that's a part of the game. You know what I mean? If you don't like it, go watch boxing, go watch a different sport like this. It's mixed martial arts. So the calf kick is, someone's going to figure out how to counter it. And it's just a part of the sport. And that just blew my mind. And yeah, I had Rivera in this one too. And there was he started hitting him a little bit at the end of the third round there. And, Munoz has a chin on him. So I think Pedro Munoz has a pretty good future in front of him here. He's pretty, especially now that with the Edgar loss, Edgar's going to drop down the rankings a little bit. So Munoz could be in line for either a title shot or a number one contender spot.
Yeah, he's up there, man. That's a very solid win over Jimmy Rivera. And to go out there in 30-27 in a rematch, that's some really good stuff. All right, so moving right along, Montana De La Rosa, Mayra Bueno Silva ends in majority draw. So, Al, I kind of felt like I was on an island this week, man. Montana De La Rosa, a very popular underdog pick, a very popular underdog play, to the point so that by the time this fight went off, Montana De La Rosa was the slight favorite here. I ended up taking Mayra Bueno Silva. I didn't have a bet on this fight. And, man, in retrospect, really glad I didn't have a bet on this fight, albeit ended in a draw, right? Would have been a push. We would have got it kicked back. But, man, what did this fight come down to? I'll tell you what this fight came down to. The cage grab, man. Mayra Bueno Silva doesn't grab that cage. She wins this fight 29-28. Yeah. She won it on one judge's scorecard 28-27. Then on the other two, they came back 28-28. But realistically, both those judges scored the fight 29-28. You deduct the 1 point from Mayra Bueno Silva, you get a 28-28, right? Check out this, though. This is something that people don't really talk about, but I do just want to touch on it very, very slightly, right? So I understand 2 of the 3 judges came out with a draw. We go with a draw. That makes sense, right? But think about it from this concept that Mayra Bueno Silva did win one judge's scorecard. Montana De La Rosa didn't win any. How often in any type of sport do we end up in a scenario where the game's based off points, right? Whoever has the most points wins. Well, Mayra Bueno Silva on the scorecards tonight finished this fight with 1 more point than Montana De La Rosa, yet did not win. It was a draw. I just feel like that's such an interesting concept in this sport. But nonetheless, man, Montana De La Rosa does win one solid round. Mayra Bueno Silva, though, I talked about the mean streak she brings to a fight. Man, we saw it in effect. She's very strong, very powerful, put a lot of damage on Montana De La Rosa. I mean, honestly, at the end of the fight, you look at Silva, she's really not worse for wear. Montana De La Rosa was very beat up. With the point deduction, I do want to say this. That was a very quick point deduction, and I do understand that the cage grab absolutely stopped a takedown. I would have much rather in that scenario seen a strong warning, and then you give Montana De La Rosa the position, and then you know what I mean, give her the takedown, right? As opposed to just taking a point. That changes the whole round. It's an unwinnable round at that point for Silva.
100%.
And maybe if it happens again, we're looking at taking a point. But nonetheless, man, it's a draw. What'd you think of this one, Al?
I thought this was a pretty good fight. This was one of those ones where I had De La Rosa. I got her at plus money earlier, and then just came back and got Silva just because, you make money either way, and why not, right? You got two fighters at plus money. You set it up so if you need to get out of a position on your card, you can fool around that way, being on both sides there. But yeah, I completely agree with you. And you could almost argue that would have changed the fight if she would have been given the position, right? So like you should almost give the fighter the option to choose. Like, do you want me to take a point or do you want the position or something like that? It's almost a flaw in the rules there. Like if you think about it, if De La Rosa got the takedown there, she's then on top. There was about 95 or 100 seconds left in the round. I feel like she could have turned the tide there and maybe got picked up the round. Sure. So I feel like it's a little bit of a flaw in the rules where you're trying to benefit.
And Al, the one thing too that I got to mention, right? Like it's more listen, I'm fine with the concept, right? But it's the inconsistency we see. Like Mayra Bueno had a point taken on one cage grab tonight. We see guys routinely do that 3 or 4 times in a fight and never lose a point. So it is that's kind of the issue. If it were black and white and a cage grab just equaled a point, I don't think we'd have any controversy here. But the fact is, we see guys so continuously given opportunities, stern warnings. Referees just really don't want to take a point. And I understand that a referee does not want to become a factor in a fight. And when you take a point, you're literally interjecting and saying, I'm taking a point from this fighter. You almost become the star of the show at that point, it's an interesting thing, man. Is there anything you wanted to say, Al, before we move on from this one?
No, it was, like you said, remember, I seen somebody in the chat saying it's a fence grab. You stop the takedown, that takes a point. We've seen that happen before. And look at the Figueiredo against Perez. He totally grabbed the cage to stop the takedown, and it almost just happened so fast that there was, you couldn't even warn him. You couldn't even say anything to him because he won the fight. And, I may or may not have had a bunch of money on Figueiredo in that fight. So I wasn't going to be the one to open my mouth, right. But, still, we do see it happen a lot. I feel like she grabbed it. She grabbed the fence a little bit earlier, but he didn't say anything to her. And even if he did, she doesn't speak English, right? So well,
the other factor too is, Al, it's don't get me wrong. There's intentionally grabbing the fence to cheat. But if you're being taken down, it's natural response for your arms to shoot out. And it's a fence. It's a porous surface. Odds are a finger or two is going to go through the thing. And, it's just your fingers are going to snag. You know what I mean? So it's I don't know, man. It is an issue, and it's hard to be black and white about it, right? It's just such a huge gray area. And, I'm sure as the sport evolves and we move forward, maybe we get a more definitive language on what the protocol is. But right now it's kind of just you're at the mercy of whatever ref at whatever moment and kind of however they feel at the time, So, but what are you going to do, man? It's an imperfect sport. It's part of the game, and we will continue to see it. and I'm sure we will continue to talk about it. So, and yeah, unfortunately, it's kind of the main point of the fight because the point deduction is what kicks in the draw here. So, not much to say. Pretty good fight, action-wise. From a betting perspective, it's a draw, right? It's a push.
Yeah.
All right, let's roll on to our co-main event. Got to keep it real, man. I enjoyed this one. I did have Magomed Ankalaev in a parlay with the main event. We'll get to that as well. Magomed Ankalaev, man, looks pretty good. You know, this is a guy that I'm pretty high on, a guy that I think really will achieve the upper echelon of the light heavyweight division. I will say this, man, Nikita Krylov wins the first round. I think they got that right on the scorecards. Krylov looked good early in this one. I will say this, Magomed Ankalaev really used that first round to kind of put out the feelers, kind of get a read on exactly what the Krylov game plan was. It would have been nice to see him go a little bit sooner, but all things considered, he really adjusted, and you saw him continuously land the right check hook off basically everything Nikita Krylov threw. It was just wide open over and over again. He lands it, shows us some good takedowns, shows us some good wrestling, shows us some good grappling. All in all, a solid performance. Nikita Krylov's a guy that I've been fairly high on. I think this guy has a lot of skills, and honestly, pretty good showing as a big underdog to go out there and win even the first round. I think the judges got it right, 29-28. Like I said, I had Magomed as the first leg of a little co-main event parlay. Did you have anything on this one, Al?
Yeah, I had the under just because following the trends, the light heavyweight division is like 19-19 since last year. So it's one of those ones where I'm just always going, a little 1% play wherever the plus money is. So it was one of those ones where I was like, I'm just going to, it's a gamble, right? It's not really a handicap. I'm just betting on the odds because there's a tendency where they get these, the odds makers get these ones about 50-50. So, but everybody was on the over in this fight. The over was a heavily bet play. Like I bet the under 1.5 earlier in the week at like plus 130, and then I could have got it today at like plus 170. So a lot of people were on the over in this one. And then Ankalaev by decision cashed at plus 275, even though he was a minus 290 favorite. So, what does that tell you? Like the market was expecting Ankalaev to get the finish here. And yeah, that alone is, a kind of there's no moral victories in fighting, but that's a little bit of a moral victory that Krylov was able to, last the whole fight. And yeah, he did win a round. I feel like Ankalaev, people are talking about this guy being able, if this guy is a contender, I feel like that's kind of a, that's kind of a detriment, not a detriment. It's kind of a, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not a good look on this light heavyweight division. Like the fight was, if you bet on him, it was pretty good, but I didn't think the fight was that entertaining. It was pretty, it was pretty slow paced. I don't know. I would like to see the matchmakers kind of, he deserves a step up. So I'd like to see him, fight a guy like, somebody he's ranked number 8, right? Yeah. So I think he deserves a top 5 guy, but again, the light heavyweight division is pretty thin. So yeah, I guess he might be in line for a title shot, but even against, and we'll talk about it later, and people know I'm not that high on Jan Blachowicz, but even against Jan Blachowicz, I'm going Jan Blachowicz in that matchup all day. So I just don't see it with Ankalaev. There's something that I want to be, I want to see, because I was on Krylov in this fight because I thought the odds were a little bit off, but yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to get somebody that's ranked up there, Here could be a good one. The winner of which, coming up this week, we have Rakic versus Thiago Santos. Yeah. That could be a really good matchup right there. Winner gets Ankalaev. Maybe even loser gets Ankalaev. I don't know. I guess it depends on what they want to do with the winner of that matchup. But that's going to be a good fight right there, and maybe we talk about that here in a few minutes. All right, moving right along the main event, man. I got to be honest. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm biased, right? I had an Ankalaev Ciryl Gane parlay. I felt like both fights were a little bit risky, but I was confident both guys would get it done right. Could have bet them individually, but I said to myself, let's just combine the risk, get a little parlay action going, close to even money. Not quite, but almost. Ciryl Gane, I'm seeing a lot of criticisms for this guy. I feel like I just watched Ciryl Gane go out and fight Jairzinho Rozenstruik, a guy with Suriname death touch flowing through his body, okay? Ciryl Gane just went out there and pitched a shutout. Flawless victory. I mean, I think Ciryl Gane maybe got hit 3 or 4 times in this fight.
Yeah.
Jairzinho Rozenstruik, which I got to be honest, I saw a little something on a YouTube chat on a video. Jairzinho Frozenstruik. Yeah, dude. The dude honestly just never went for it. I mean, he went for it 2, maybe 3 times in this fight. Absolutely frozen by the in and out movement, the pitter patter popping of Ciryl Gane. This was a highly impressive performance for me from Ciryl Gane. I understand a lot of people probably wanted him to go out there and get that KO victory. Wanted to see something absolutely spectacular here. But against a guy like Jairzinho Rozenstruik, who continuously loses fights until the exact moment he wins, that's just not the game plan. Ciryl Gane went out here as only a 7-0 fighter, now 8-0, and just, in my opinion, a flawless performance against a ultra deadly guy. What did you think of this one, Al? I loved it. I cashed a little parlay to finish off the night. Al, did you have anything on this one?
Yeah, I had the over 1.5, which opened at like -150, and I bet that as soon as it came out. That was one where I was like, normally I only bet like 2.5% as a unit, and this is one of those ones where I was like, I'm getting such a good price. You got to go 2 units on this one. Like, fight goes the distance, paid out 2-1 here. Gone by decision was +300. So this is one of those ones where the market was expecting there to be a finish. But if you were siding with Ciryl Gane, Ciryl Gane doesn't really have the hitting power of Francis Ngannou, and Ngannou is the only guy to be able to knock out Rozenstruik. So it was like I couldn't envision Ciryl Gane finishing Yair Rozenstruik, but I could definitely envision him, staying at distance and picking him apart, which he did, right? So this was one of those ones. The over 2.5 closed at -110. So even then, if you got in on that early, you were probably getting like +120. So it was this is for the best bet for me on this card, and it was 3 minutes into the fight, you knew right away this fight's going for a while because they're just staring at each other. And we'll talk about it in a second, but it got me thinking actually about the main event in next week. And so many people are upset, but I blame the matchmakers. I don't blame Ciryl Gane. What do you think he's gonna do? You know what I mean? He's fighting a guy, a high-level kickboxer, right? A high-level striker. I don't blame him for using his, he's a hybrid. He's one of these new era MMA guys where he's not really well-rounded, but he's intelligent enough to pick a guy like Jairzinho Rozenstruik apart who does, he's one-dimensional. So, I don't blame him. I blame the matchmakers. What do they think was going to happen? Like, did they think that, Rozenstruik was going to come out flying? I feel like if you were going to put this type of fight together, it's got to be on pay-per-view. It's got to be on the big stage, right? Because neither one of those guys were going out there to, put their career on the line to show us something spectacular. Ciryl Gane fought a smart fight, and I don't blame him. And it's basically as simple as that. Don't blame the fighter, blame the matchmakers. And it also helps us because Ciryl Gane's going to get a big step up after this. and you'll probably see a little bit of hate in the market going against Gane with whoever he ends up fighting. And speaking of which, it was interesting. I don't know if you saw it, but John Jones tweeting during the fight.
I retweeted it, my man.
And yeah, so he's gonna come in and somebody, and it depends on if he wants a tune-up fight or something. So, but yeah, he is right. Like we gotta turn up the volume here. This is why you can't have these two super hard hitting heavyweights. You gotta mess around with the matchmaking at that level when every second guy has a touch of death, right? So it's one of those things where you end up getting a whole bunch of Lewis versus Ngannou type fights like we had tonight, where it's just like, I don't blame them. Every time you walk out of that cage, you leave a little bit of it in there, right? And especially at heavyweight. So I don't blame him. It's just the way it is.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, man, for me, any criticisms of Gane would be like basically saying, well, why didn't Ciryl Gane give Jairzinho Rozenstruik a chance to win? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like, are you kidding me? Like, you want it? I mean, are you just asking the guy to be more reckless? And recklessness is what Jairzinho feasts upon. You know what I mean? So I don't know, man. It is what it is. I think probably a lot of this criticism's coming from the people who are taking the dog shot on Jairzinho. So who knows, man? It's like somebody in the comments just said, Gunny, you just can't win with these fans, honestly. And it really feels like that sometimes. But don't get me wrong. I think the UFC saw this fight probably being finished. But you know what? I said earlier this week, man, I thought that there was a good chance that Ciryl Gane would win this fight. And I said I thought there was a very good chance he'd win it by decision. And honestly, this fight played out pretty similar to how I thought it would, just given how dangerous Jairzinho Rozenstruik is. And if you're going to have the proper game plan, you're going to go out there and do what Ciryl Gane did tonight. So all the props in the world, man. I think it was a flawless performance. I am very, very hyped. I'm very high on the Ciryl Gane train. And from what I'm seeing, man, and I watch a lot of freaking tape, Al, we break down every freaking fight every week, man. I think we're looking at a guy that can achieve the highest heights, truly. And I'm not even sure if we're seeing the best version of a Ciryl Gane yet, considering he is still so inexperienced in MMA. But nonetheless, he's getting a very, very big fight next. I'd be surprised if they give him a step back, but who knows? Maybe they would like to do the slow build, considering we actually have some momentum. It's been a long time since the UFC's had options at heavyweight. We've kind of always been reaching for contenders for quite some time. Now we have got a lot of talent on a lot of roles and a lot of good stuff going on. UFC heavyweight division is getting very exciting, man, and I love it. Is there anything you want to say about this, Al, before we take a peek into the monster that is UFC 259?
No, let's get into it. Let's forget about this unentertaining card.
Forget about it.
Let's talk
We're
about
on to next week, baby. Yeah, well, Al, I'm going to let you kick it off, man. Where do you want to start off on this UFC 259?
Yeah, I just want to transition a little bit from what we were just talking about. And just because I said something, I think it was on the post show of the last one, 258, the last pay-per-view, I said that I think that Adesanya, because he's challenging for the belt, that I thought he was going to come out, guns blazing and finish the main event, him fighting for the light heavyweight championship against Jan Blachowicz. And, I said that he's going to go in, and because he's the challenger, he's not going to sit on the outside and just pick him apart and fight the championship game that we saw him fight against Yoel Romero, or that type of John Jones style where, and you saw John Jones get a lot of criticism in his career sometimes for doing that by sitting on the outside and just picking guys apart. And I thought about it, and I feel like, why wouldn't he do that? Why wouldn't he do that if that's the path to victory for him? Why wouldn't he just sit on the outside, maybe calf kick him, maybe, do the same type of setup that he had with Yoel Romero. And if not with Yoel Romero, with Paulo Costa, where he just sat on the outside and kind of turned him and, got him so that he had to come forward to evade the calf kick. And I feel like he might be the best fighter in the world at doing that if he wants to just sit on the outside and kind of pick a guy apart and use, counter punch and use the momentum against him. And I feel like, everyone's talking about the power of Jan. And I feel like the best way that he can win this fight, and I've gone like a complete 180 where I was thinking like 2 weeks ago, is for him to sit on the outside, is for him to, not push the pace and to just be calculated. And and something else I wanted to talk about was we were talking like two weeks ago, and Izzy was like a minus 270 favorite. And I was saying, he's going to get up to like minus 300. And I was dead wrong. There's money coming in pretty heavily on Blachowicz, and Izzy's sitting at like minus 240 now. So I still feel like there's a good amount of value on Ciryl Adesanya, especially at minus 240. And then I feel like there's a little bit of value on Ciryl Adesanya to win this fight by decision at plus 250. And then, I think the over 3.5 at plus 115. I think that I just feel like he's gonna fight this fight smart, like what we were talking about in the main event of this last card. I feel like, why wouldn't he, fight the perfect fight from the outside? Why wouldn't he do the Volkanovski? Why wouldn't he just do that? Why wouldn't he just pick him apart, sit on the outside? And if anybody's gonna make the perfect game plan for this, it's gonna be City Kickboxing, and it's gonna be Eugene Behrman. And that's how I envision this. I envision it now with Izzy just sitting on the outside. And with that being said, if you are going to bet Blachowicz here, I think you got to bet him on the inside the distance, right? I think you got to throw maybe, half your bet on Blachowicz money line, and then the other half on inside the distance at like 7-1, I think it is, or something like that. Because I think the only way that Blachowicz wins this fight is he's going to have to knock him out. And on the other side, I think there's a pretty clear path to victory for Izzy to, go 5 rounds and just, win a 50-45 or something like that. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think, if Adesanya is smart, he absolutely stays on the outside. I mean, let me take a look here real quick. I just want to bring up the numbers here. So there you go. I mean, Adesanya is going to be, and the thing is, height's unofficial, but Adesanya is listed 6'4", Jan's listed 6'2". Jan has a 78-inch reach, which is absolutely enormous, and he's absolutely used it in the past. Ciryl Adesanya has an 80-inch reach. So, this is going to be interesting, because this is going to be, the first guy Adesanya's fought in the UFC with a similar wingspan to him, which could absolutely make this a much closer fight. Outside of the Kelvin Gastelum fight, which I think Adesanya learned a very valuable lesson. You can never let the man with the shorter reach get inside, which Kelvin did quite a bit, landed some really good shots. But look at who he's fought since. The reach advantage on Whitaker. He was just outside of everything Whitaker had to throw, but yet was close enough to land all the counters on Whitaker. Paulo Costa, exact same scenario. Paulo Costa, very short-armed. Izzy just had no problem allowing, himself to lean back, slide back, allow Paulo to get off whatever he's throwing, whiffing on pure air. And now he's, in a bad position there to be hit. And Adesanya, for my money, is the best counter striker in UFC history. I think the game plan is going to be keep it on the outside. You could be right. Jan is notoriously flat-footed and a little bit plodding. If he could really use a good calf kick game plan like we're seeing implemented just across the board here in the sport, I think that's a very, very solid game plan here. What he needs to do is be able to lure Jan, use enough feints, get Jan to commit, get Jan, the slightly slower man, to try to come in, avoid those really long, which, like I said, man, Jan, he's got a reach on him. He's going to be able to hit Adesanya probably with more shots than I think Adesanya is used to as of late. But I think Izzy will be there to hit him with those counter shots. And we've seen the effectiveness of this guy's counters, the shots that he put Whitaker down twice with, the shots that, he hit Paulo Costa with over and over again before finally just outright putting him down. But man, I'm telling you what, Al, the closer we draw to this fight, I'm thinking we might really, really have a spectacular fight on our hands. This could end up playing out close, man. I really do. But I still I'm on the Adesanya side for sure. Is there anything you want to say about this one, Al? Should we talk about another fight on this card?
Yeah, I misspoke. I said it was 7-1 for Blachowicz inside the distance. That must have been from when the fight was announced. He's at like plus 470 inside the distance. And like, if money's coming in on Blachowicz and kind of, sucking away that value, I think that, the real value here is I don't see him winning a decision. I see him winning by knocking him out, by catching either a tired or a hurt Izzy. One thing I will bring up is that, I feel like Jan is going to take what he did to Reyes, where he's going to, implement that body kick and stuff like that. I feel like if he does that, he's going to be in a lot of trouble because, you're fighting a guy who is, a renowned counter striker, kickboxer. He knows how to read hips better than anything, better than any. You're playing his game if he tries to, kick him in the upper body or, try to get that liver kick. I think that is a bad move. I think he's going to have to take him down. He's going to have to, maybe ground and pound him. So yeah, I'm really bullish on Adesanya, and but I've kind of a little bit seen what the hype is about. The market is coming in on the other side on Blachowicz, and if he wins this fight, he's gonna have to knock him out or submit him. But I don't see him winning a decision here. And then yeah, I like the over 3.5 rounds, and I feel like we might get some. I feel like that line might move. So if you wait, you might be able to get a better line on that. But yeah, it's going to be crazy. I think UFC 259, and I said this before, I think this is going to be the start of like a whole new era of the sport, especially if Izzy wins, right? Like, I think it's going to change everything as far as their matchmaking and the way that they're, just – another thing that I wanted to bring up just really quickly was that Jan is going to also be, possibly the slowest guy that Izzy's ever faced, at least in MMA. Because he's plotting, and he's the biggest guy. He's like going to be coming in there like 215 on the night of the fight. Maybe he'll leave probably a little bit more, probably heavier than that. And he's going to, if he's not conditioned, and if he's not, if that hand speed isn't there, Izzy's going to be so fast that, this is why it's so compelling. This is why this fight is so interesting. It's because it's one of the only fights ever where we see such a discrepancy in their size, in their body types, like in their weight. And I'm just so hyped for this. And let's talk about some other fights. What other fights are you looking on?
Well, I got to get your take on this one before we just breeze over it. But the co-main event, Amanda Nunes getting in there against Megan Anderson. What is your take on this one, Al?
Well, this is one of those. I have to come out and say I'm super biased because Amanda Nunes is one of the biggest gambling wins of my entire life. I bet her at plus 300. Against Ronda, against Ronda, and so she'll always have I'll always have a little bit of bias towards Amanda Nunes, and you just can't bet her in this fight. I think she's gonna win, but it's getting to the point where there's so much value on the other side that you might as well put a little play on Megan Anderson, because it's getting a little bit ridiculous. And if you especially look at her last performance against GDR, she beat her up, and it was a pretty clear fight. But I don't think that if she goes into like the 4th or 5th round of Megan Anderson, that it's going to go the same way that it went with GDR, because Megan Anderson is an athlete. Like she's young and she's long. She's probably one of the longer fighters that Amanda's ever faced. So,
most definitely.
I feel like this fight's a lot closer than what the odds indicate. And I do, I personally feel like Amanda's gonna win. But if you're getting plus 800 on Megan Anderson, I think you might as well throw a little quarter of a unit just for fun, because I even on the inside the distance for Amanda Nunes, it can't be that. What is it? Minus 340. Like, no. And if Megan wins, I don't see her winning a decision. I think she's got to knock her out or submit her. She's going to have to win inside the distance. And I think, just based on the promos, it sounds like one of them wants. It's not going to be a 5-round fight. I think that Megan Anderson's going to come out trying to take her head off, and if she does that, she might be in some trouble. So it's super. What do you think? What's your take on it?
Yeah, man, I think Nunes is going to win, but you're talking implied probability. I think there's a chance the fight does play out closer than the odds we're getting, but at the same time, man, it's tough to see. It's tough to see Nunes losing to this chick at this point in her career. If Megan Anderson maybe a few years down the road and Nunes was starting to be on the slide, the decline, and Megan Anderson had a little bit more experience. But I mean, women's 145, man, I'll keep it real. I don't think that division should exist. I mean, we're talking about a division that's made up of 4 women. I mean, can we? Look, it's not a joke, and I'm not trying to be demeaning. Go look at women's UFC on the UFC website right now, UFC.com. Go look at the women's 145-pound rankings. What you will find is a listed champion, Amanda Nunes, followed by no one in the top 10. They don't even have the audacity to rank Megan Anderson on the website. They can't even come up with some spots to fill out a top 10, let alone a top 15. And in my book, man, if we don't even have 10 competitors at this weight, let alone a top 15, I don't think the division should exist. And if we're keeping it real, this is a belt that was supposed to be Cyborg's, right? Cyborg was supposed to win this belt, but Nunes went in there and proved beyond a shadow of a doubt she truly is the greatest female fighter of all time. Yeah. And it's just tough for me to see a chick who could go in there toe-to-toe, fight Cyborg's game, which is essentially to kickbox, right? And just goes in there, dusts Cyborg like that, and isn't going to be able to handle a Megan Anderson. I mean, Megan's going to have to just do something no one else has been able to do. And when I say that, Amanda Nunes has lost fights, but it's not going to be in the style of which she lost previous fights. Right. Those fights were lost through grappling. Those fights were lost when Nunes was so much greener. There's one path to victory for Megan Anderson here, and it's to stay long, use that length, work a jab, work some good heavy shots.
Yeah, that's true.
And just somehow be able to land that knockout blow, which I see is probably her most likely path to victory, while also being very unlikely. Or just somehow be able to outpoint her. And I really don't see that being the case either. If Nunes was smart, I think she probably makes this a dirty fight. I think she could win this fight, honestly, in any area. But the point where I think Nunes overshadows Megan Anderson the most is probably going to be on the ground. If Nunes can take her down and use a heavy top game and ground and pound, I think that's where she's going to really be able to show that she's on another level. At the same time, I'm not going to be surprised if Nunes just goes out there and absolutely dusts her on the feet either. I really think Nunes has a rare accuracy and rare power for a female fighter, and she really just seems to be at her absolute peak right now, and seems to be, when she fights at 145, just have even more power, just even more ability to put you away in a timely manner. Nunes is a very scary beast, and I really think she's just, a level above all competition currently available. I think that probably about covers it. Is there anything else you want to say on this one, Al?
Yeah, it's interesting that you mention it. So guess in total over the past 4 years, guess how many women's featherweight fights there have been in the UFC? It's under 20.
Oh my goodness. So you're saying grand total lifetime. Yeah, under 20. I would believe it. And I mean, and Nunes has been in what? Half of them?
Yeah.
And half of them have been title fights, right? Like, it's just, I don't know, man. It is what it is. I don't see the UFC shuttering any more divisions. The thing that's keeping it around is the fact that Nunes has that belt over her shoulder, and the attempt of the UFC to market a champ, right? And not just a champ. She's the first champ who's gone on to defend the title in both of the divisions. She's currently the champion. So the UFC will keep it around, use it as a marketing tool, but man, it kind of feels like a phony division to me. But like, where are these contenders? I don't see anyone outside the UFC that I'm dying to get in here to see fight at women's 145. It just doesn't really do it for me, Al, but I guess I understand it from the marketing standpoint. So, Al, is there any other fights you want to talk about on UFC 259 this upcoming Saturday?
Let's just quickly brush over my first glance picks, and then maybe you could do the same, like just off the top of your head. There's the Rakic Santos fight, which, like you mentioned earlier, I think that fight's going to be freaking amazing. Like, so many of these fights that I'm going to mention could have been like the headliner for the past 2 fights that we just watched, the past 2 cards that we just watched. Some of them could be pay-per-view headliners if it was like, if one of them had a belt or something. But yeah, Rakic, I think Rakic gets it done against Santos. And then this other one, Casey Kenny against Dominic Cruz. I think that one's really interesting. I laid a heavy price on Casey Kenny here. I think that, Dominic Cruz should not be just like a plus 115 dog against Casey Kenny. Like, Dominic Cruz is on his way out the door. Like, he's barely fought in the past like 4 or 5 years. I think Casey Kenny is a legitimate bantamweight contender. So that's a bad fight for Dominic Cruz to have taken. And then another one, this almost the exact same thing, Askar Askarov, Joseph Benavidez, which again, amazing fight, super cool. But Askar Askarov is going to win this fight, and I'll go out a limb, and I'm 100% picking Askar Askarov here. Minus 118. I think this is a gift. This fight should not be a pick 'em. This fight should not be, Askar Askarov should be like a minus 170 favorite in my mind here. Ton of value on him in this fight. And then Song Yadong against Kyler Phillips. I think Song Yadong has a ton of value, minus 150. And another fight just to mention, I don't really have a pick on it yet. I got to look into it more, but Kai Kara France against Rogerio Bontorin. That's an amazing fight. Like, this card is just absolutely unbelievable. It's one of the best cards like in the past 5 years. Like, it's just absolutely crazy. I'm super stoked for it. What are some of the angles that you're looking at?
Well, I gotta say, man, I think I probably agree with you on all those you just went over. I'm gonna take a look at the card right now. I still lean Petr Yan. We talked about that last week. Islam Makhachev, Drew Dober is a very intriguing matchup. Drew Dober, an absolute monster. Islam is the heavy favorite there. I think I do lean Islam as it stands right now. I'm with you on the Alexander Rakic side. I think you got to go Rakic here. I mean, Thiago Santos is one of these guys that it doesn't matter who it is. He's live to knock you out. But considering everything Thiago Santos has gone through,
Yeah.
Even the John Jones injuries where he essentially ripped out both knees. Alexander, I mean, don't get me wrong, he's come back and fought since, had the very good fight that he lost to Glover Teixeira. But Glover Teixeira laid out the game plan on how you beat Thiago Santos, and it's through wrestling. It's through the grappling, right? And Alexander Rakic absolutely showed us in that Anthony Smith matchup. It's going to be an identical game plan for Alexander Rakic based off the last fight, what he did, what he accomplished, and what he's going to need to do coming into this Thiago Santos matchup. I absolutely favor him there. You're right. Dominic Cruz, Casey Kenny on prelims. Okay, that's how loaded up this card is. Dominic Cruz on prelims. Yeah, Dominic Cruz, inactivity. Again, another guy that, I mean, I'm pretty sure this guy is on his third zombie cadaver ACL. I mean, this guy's gone through more ACLs than Jack the Ripper. You know what I'm saying? Like, going up against Casey Kenny, I mean, I feel like I'm looking at two guys just on total opposite career trajectories here. Dom Cruz, old, inactive, on the decline. I did not like what I saw of him in his last fight, and I'm expecting him to look dropped off even more against Casey Kenny, who's young, up and coming, growing, showing me incredible potential every fight. I mean, it's just I really don't even have to think about it much more. It's Casey Kenny for me on that one. Kyler Phillips, Yadong Song, man, I don't have any clue. All I know is both those guys are very good. I think I'm with you on the Askar Askarov side. Joseph Benavidez, another situation where we're talking about the still officially undefeated Askar Askarov, who showed us a lot of skills and improvement in every fight against the fading, old, past the expiration date Joseph Benavidez, who's coming off of 2 life-changing beatings to your boy Figgy, right?
Yeah.
Kai Kara France, Rogerio Bontorin, I don't really know who I'm going with there. Tim Elliott, Jordan Espinoza, I don't have a strong read there. Carlos Ulberg, Kennedy Nchukwu is a very, very interesting matchup. Ulberg, the training partner of Israel Adesanya, but at the same time, a guy who's only 3-0, going up against Kennedy, who's been out for a long time, trains out of Fortis, and has only lost one fight. One of those guys who won the whole fight against Paul Craig and ended up getting a late triangle. So that's a good matchup. Sean Brady, Jake Matthews is incredible. I'm very high on the undefeated Sean Brady. I think I'll probably end up going that side in this one. Lavinia Souza versus Amanda Lemos. I'm not sure about that. Uros Medic, he's undefeated against Elon Cruz. We've kind of seen the shortcomings of Elon Cruz. At the same time, Uros Medic, a guy who's 6-0, but coming off the dreaded local Alaska scene that's just notorious for producing guys that drop the ball. And then even the first fight of the night, which is going to get absolutely slept on, but it's going to be a total banger. Trevin Jones versus Mario Batista. Trevin Jones coming off that huge upset win in his UFC debut that ended up getting overturned later on due to him having apparently too much THC in his system, against Mario Batista, a guy who, has only had one loss in his UFC run, and I think it's to Cordy Sandhagen, but an 8-1 guy, a big prospect, again, that I'm very high on. So it's going to be an incredible card, man, and I absolutely cannot wait. Man, Al, I'm telling you what, dude, I'm going to have a lot of bets on this card. We have 15 fights as it stands right now. Unfortunately, we're going to have to lose one or two, right? We always sacrifice one or two to COVID protocol. Who knows, man? The craziest stuff happens in this sport that we lose fights from. But I'm excited, man. I can't freaking wait. Al, is there anything you want to say before we wrap this up?
Yeah, just expect us to be, I feel like the card will still be going on, right? Like this time next Saturday, 1:16 a.m. Like I bet, the fight will be in like the 4th round, like the main event. So, if you're going to be around next Saturday, we'll be here, and it might end up popping off at freaking who knows, because then there's going to be 3 champions that are going to talk and Dana. So it's going to be it's going to be pretty one. Yeah, it's going to be a late one, but we will be here, and we'll have so many things to talk about. We won't have enough time to fit in what we're going to talk about. So yeah, I'm super excited. And then right after we're here every other Saturday after that, until freaking April. So It never ends, man. And then we go right into Bellator, and then we go right into the Bellator stretch. So MMA, man,
listen, Bellator's back, PFL's back. We're gonna be very busy, Al.
Cool. So yeah, I'm super excited, and to say I'm super excited it's just the understatement of the year. Like this is incredible. This
Al's been all aboard UFC 259 ever since we wrapped up UFC 258. So, all right, man. Well, we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you guys for hitting up the chat. Thank you guys for watching. Even if you're watching the replay, be sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. We are out here for my man Al Mack. We are Odds HQ, baby. We're the Odds Squad, odds.com. We will catch you guys. Me and Al Mack will be back recapping and wrapping up UFC 259. Be on the lookout. It'll be a late one, but we will be here. We are out of here.